It should be obvious to anyone the direction that, well, the car industry really is going in. It's going in a lot greener future. It is very much focusing on hybrids and, of course, even more on electric cars, which is good for us. It's good for the environment. And as multiple people have said, if you want to reach our net zero ambitions, not only just for the UK, but globally, then electric cars are the way forward. But of course, there are some big challenges. You have to do that. You have to sort of certainly prepare for the national grid has to expand to prepare for that extra demand that it will have to meet for people charging these electric cars. You also have to prepare the infrastructure as well so that people can charge these cars on the go. You know, it's a bit pointless if you're traveling and all of a sudden you realize, oh no, there's no electric charging point. And trust me, if you've ever spoken to anyone with an electric car and they're doing a long distance journey, they always say, I plan out my journey so I can literally go to charging point if they have to for a long distance journey. So there's still a long way to go before we really reach this true electric car future. But the fact that you've got manufacturers moving in this direction really is a good step. It's a really good step. But but of course, we've got to look at the other side of this. Because you've got manufacturers, and of course, the car industry, certainly one of the biggest when it comes to manufacturing industries here in the UK still. And of course, remember, Nissan in particular, the factory in Sunderland was made a big focus point of the Brexit referendum, to a point where even Boris Johnson had to throw a massive amount of money to convince Nissan to stay in the UK recently. Well, just last year, if you may remember that. So things are not looking good. And at the moment, because of how the Brexit agreement is structured, and particularly with rules of origins checks and regarding batteries, electric car manufacturers here in the UK are looking at a massive, massive Brexit cliff edge, one of which seems to be really, really unavoidable. So, as always, before we go talking more about this, and of course, this massive Brexit cliff edge that is coming, but it's something we've been talking about for a while now, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can well buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club down below as well. So, to catch you up on this, like I say, we have been covering this quite a bit. So if you have been watching the videos, you know sort of where we are. But for those who have missed those, here's the quick TDLR. Essentially, what this comes down to is rules of origin checks that basically says, look, about a certain percentage of your car must be made here either in the EU or in the UK. If it's not, it's going to receive an increased tariff, basically making your car more expensive. And as a result, if you're Stellaris, Nissan, or any of these companies that are sort of really switching and really investing into electric car manufacturing, not only just in cars, but in vans, and even in some cases, lorries as well, you're in a bit of a big trouble because this tariff is coming. And it seems to be really coming at the start of next year. But these car industries, they need it now. They need the government, or at least our government, really to be stepping in and saying what you need to be doing. Or at least, should we say, clearing the way so that this can be more helpful to these industries. Because these industries, they don't just go, well, we'll make an electric car today or we're making a van today. No, the planning for these industries is, you're talking at least 6 months. And one of the things that they've lost, certainly in the UK now, is they've lost the just-in-time delivery systems. And those losing those just-in-time delivery systems, because again of the Brexit checks that we've had to put in, means that they now have to stock up parts. Meaning that you now have to buy in all those parts to make sure that they're stocked up, to make sure you've got that lead in time, to make sure all the parts are there, so you can build all the vehicles. You can see how much this all really costs potentially a big company like Nissan. And now you've got the potentiality of these tariffs coming in. Well, that's going to cost these electric car manufacturers even more. And of course, if you're a European car manufacturer selling into the UK, well, you're going to have to pass on that increase somewhere. And eventually that's going to have to come down to the consumer. So these electric car manufacturers have been saying this for a while, that if this continues, they're going to move their operations out of the UK and to Europe. Because with the EU bringing in their own sort of battery production in sort of Europe, really heavily sort of investing in that, and especially investing in other sort of big green technologies and subsidies for sort of this type of manufacturing, it's becoming more and more tempting to just say, why are we still manufacturing in the UK? So this needs to be done, and it needs to be done really before the autumn, because a lot of these car manufacturers are saying if this is not done before the autumn, we might have to make some pretty big decisions. And of course, Kimi Badnoch, obviously, is the minister in charge of trade. These big manufacturers in the UK have been going to her saying, this is what we need it done quickly. But she's not budging. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if the UK wants to make these changes, it has to give the EU something. Because the EU's got no really reason to make these changes. The UK's got no leverage. That's the truth. The EU is the bigger market, as we've already said for years that this would happen. That in any talks or trade negotiations where we have to try and sort of help our own manufacturing industry, we have to go pretty much to the EU cap in hand and say, yeah, we need something. And eventually it will come down to the UK has to give the EU something. And of course, remember, we've still got a very, very pro-Brexit government. Kimi Badnoch still very, very pro-Brexit, trying to sort of prove her Brexit credentials constantly after she took somewhat of a beating, after saying that she's not going to be an arsonist and destroy all these rules and regulations. She needs to prove her Brexit credentials. And ultimately, if she's seen capitulating, giving something to even reduce these tariffs to, make these electric car manufacturers like Nissan and Stellantis, more comfortable to stay in the UK, then she's going to be seen as a capitulator, someone who's not playing ball, and someone who's giving in to the EU. But in reality, her stubbornness and refusal to really do anything about this is basically dooming the electric car manufacturing here in the UK. And ultimately, this will doom not only just the electric car manufacturers in the UK, there are huge businesses based around those, and supplying those here in the UK. And if those go, those businesses that surround that, they'll probably just go as well and end up collapsing. And I've always said, when you had Honda down in Sunderland, that was a big car manufacturer that went specifically because of Brexit, but it didn't get any attention because, again, it wasn't the centerpiece of sort of the Brexit campaign, whereas the Nissan plant in Sunderland was the big center. See how much Sunderland will benefit because of Brexit. All you need is Renault or even Nissan to sort of pull out. And people forget Renault has a 30% control in that factory. People forget that. But that is possible. If they go, why is Nissan going to stay? No, yeah, you gave, Rishi Sunak gave that massive bribe to Nissan. Please stay here. But Nissan, at the end of the day, has to think about its bottom line. And if the bottom line basically says it's not worth staying in the UK, it's better to move into the EU, that is what Nissan will do. And when that goes, oh boy, is that going to cause a lot of upset? That is going to cause massive upset. But we'll see what happens. But this cliff edge just keeps on getting closer and closer and closer for these electric car manufacturers. And the closer it gets, the worse it becomes. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And also down below, there are links to my Patreon page and one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee. We can buy me coffee. There's a YouTube thank you button. And of course, the Pony Club as well. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you all next time.